Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Kemps, co-founder of Lone Wolf Realty Group at now EXP Realty.
And I'm Matt Kirschling with Gold Star Mortgage here in Austin.
This is two Matts, one market.
There it is.
Cool.
So we were talking about stuff involving, people's concerns with the election, whether people are thinking now's a good time to buy. And I have identified that I think there's a lot of people that are using the election as more of an excuse. They're not really hanging on because they think something's going to happen. I think that there are underlying factors as far as why people don't want to purchase. And, the election's a nice, easy out. But one of the things that we were talking about was, you would look back on some of the data and, we don't have to pull it, but the election has done very little as far as appreciation or even pricing with properties. So if you're thinking about buying and you're holding off for the election, I think you probably need to ask yourself what the underlying reason is, because I can assure you the election is not going to make that big of a difference as far as home values or even interest rates for that matter. I do think we're going to see things really pick up in the spring, and I don't think that's going to have anything to do with anything other than consumer confidence. I was talking about this on one of my meetings today. I meet with a couple of other mortgage branch managers, and the thing that astonishes me about this industry is the herd mentality. You've heard me talk about it on this podcast 100 times. The moment that there's a good amount of people that start coming off the fence, there will be no reason. It won't be because rates go down. It won't be because of property values. It won't be because of the election. It'll just be a thing, and it'll get busy. And when we look back on it, we'll be like, what was the catalyst to that? And we'll go, I don't know.
No clue.
Because
the herd did.
Right. Well, and what's interesting is I'm finally seeing a lot of people that are the people who are coming off the fence are the people who told themselves that they were going to wait for something to happen, and nothing really exciting has happened in the last 2.5 years. And I finally have people throwing up their hands, and they're like, if I keep waiting for something to happen, I'm never going to move out of this house. And people are just doing what they want because they want it.
Facts.
What are you seeing? And so let me ask you this. I'm seeing more people. We typically don't see people list a lot at the end of the year. And I feel like I'm seeing a huge influx in listings lately. We're not seeing that? We're
seeing listings get withdrawn.
Well, and that's kind of normal, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you guys every single day are talking about some new listing.
It's because we do our job.
Well, yes. But normally I see people listing more in the spring.
Agreed.
So is it safe to say maybe listings are up for this time of year?
We can pull some data and figure that out, but to me, it doesn't feel that way. I looked at inventory this morning. We're at 12,000 listings. We were at 16,000 earlier this year.
Okay.
And I'm just going off of just rough numbers, but I still think we're down on listings. I think our inventory has decreased.
Are you guys running? Maybe I'm hearing you just running more listing appointments.
Definitely running more appointments. It's also taking longer to convert.
Okay.
With that being said, at the same time, listings that are ready to sell are moving. Listings that are not perfect and they're not priced well. They haven't been renovated. They kind of have the 2005, 2010 look to them or older. If you're not accounting for that in price, they are sitting. And that's where a lot of the days on market are coming from. Our inventory right now is really crappy of the quality.
Got it. So who are the people that are selling right now that, if you could identify something that you said it's crappy, I mean, what is that? Is it investors unloading properties? Is it people that, are finally just saying, all right, fine, we have to sell? Like who's selling right now?
It's in the effort mindset, emotional mindset, investor mindset. Those are the only people that are getting, offloading properties.
And the effort people, do you think it's because they've waited too long? Or do you think
they've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And then they're like, okay, you know what? I want to make sure that we're in a new school by next year. Just because that start of the new year, it's a big deal.
How many people in 2021 and 2022 did you have that were waiting and waiting and waiting because they thought that they could get more money for their house?
Personally, not that many.
Yeah.
Because we did it, again, humbly said we did a great job of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have some people that are like that, but not as many as others, I think.
I remember talking to agents that were like, yeah, I've got a bunch of clients that want to list, but they want to hold off because they think that they're going to get even more for their property. And I just remember having those conversations a few months before things kind of turned. And I always, I don't get to really follow the full story of the listing. And I always wonder how many of those clients looked back and went, man, I wish I would have sold
Yeah.
when my real estate agent told me to.
The more that we're getting right now is I don't want to sell because I have a 2.5% interest rate.
Okay.
And that's another going to be a lack of inventory that we're going to see because I don't think we're ever see that. I'm not the mortgage LO here, but I don't think we're going to see those rates for a long time or ever.
I'm glad you brought that up because we haven't really talked much about this, so we might as well just do it live. Like, and again, for those that are paying attention or watching, like, we're just spitballing here, but like, how could we be more strategic with someone who has a low interest rate? Like, what sort of, because you're doing the listing appointments, I'm not. So this is a great question for me because I truly want to know the answer. Like, if someone will just use 2.5%, if someone has a 2.5% interest rate and that's what's holding them back from selling their property, what would it take to, would it be data to show them like payments?
Yeah. With X amount of equity I have, with X amount of debt I have to get paid off, and I need to move this stuff over. What's my payment look like on the new house if I'm upgrading? Does it make sense for me to upgrade, or I just stay put on the nice, sexy rate that I got?
Why are we not doing that?
We should.
Like, why are we not getting in touch with clients who have low interest rates? You kind of needling them, asking them if they have any debts that they're paying higher than 2.5%.
This is another prop stream thing.
Is that right?
We can go look to see anyone who has public knowledge here. There's a software that you basically can use that says, okay, identify the people in this area that have an interest rate at this percent or less. Grab all of it. You can create a marketing thing off of it.
No, and I like that. But what I'm getting at is more along the lines of like, you're in a listing appointment right now.
Yep.
And the buyer's like, yeah, or the seller's like, yeah, my biggest concern is, I want to buy a new home, but I really don't want to give up this 2.5% interest rate. It bums me out. It's such a low rate, I'll probably never see it again. Right then and there, it's kind of an opportunity to say, are you carrying any other debts that are currently over 2.5%?
Yep.
I'm like, well, what do you mean? It's like any auto payments, any credit card payments, anything that you are currently financing that is over 2.5%. And they're like, well, yeah, we got to, and everyone's such a bullshitter because I deal with it every day. Yeah, well, we've got 2 cars, but, they're at a low rate, and we've got some credit card debt, but not much. It's like, well, it may be worth looking into the idea of selling, taking the equity, paying off the debt, and the amount of money that you're currently spending monthly on that debt is going to be gone. And even if there's a slight increase in the monthly mortgage payment in comparison to paying what you're paying today, we might even be able to wash out an increase if they are carrying a reasonable amount of debt. As an example, you and I have a mutual client right now that hypothetically, if they had some additional equity in their property, gosh, even like 10 or 15 grand would save them like $1,200 a month. And the increase on their payment, they'd actually be saving money by selling their home.
Yeah.
And I know from the finance side, and this is really tough for real estate agents because you guys aren't, doing what I'm doing, but people compartmentalize their debt. They don't look at it like it's all like money owed.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is my mortgage, this is my car, and this is my credit card. And of course, the credit card debt is the devil. That's what they want to get rid of. But then when we try to say, well, look, we can consolidate this all, get it into one low payment, it's going to save you $1,000 a month. They kind of go, I just want to get rid of my credit cards. Like, well, yeah, I get it. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. So having that conversation, if somebody's really hyper-focused on this low interest rate, why not utilize that to move it over to like, well, if you're so concerned about paying low interest, where are you paying high interest?
Yeah.
Right? And then
that goes into, on the flip side, I'm not going to this appointment if I don't really know I'm going to have it, if they actually want to sell. The only time I'm doing a conversation like this is like an annual review, seeing if they want to sell. On an annual review, this makes a lot of sense.
Gotcha.
This kind of
so
conversation.
You're not running into like a listing appointment where someone says, I want to sell, and then one of their objections is like, well, I really just don't want to get rid of this low rate.
Not really.
Gotcha.
If they call me in to have a listing appointment, there's already I want to sell.
I heard a great line yesterday that I really want to clip, which was, I don't even know who it was. I follow so many damn people. But it was a real estate agent that was a woman, and she said, if a seller says to you, I'm not in a hurry to sell, that actually just translates to I'm not willing to be realistic with the price of my property.
100%. Agreed.
So remember that, consumers. You should avoid saying, I'm in no hurry to sell, because if that is the case, you're lying. You're just not willing to you're just not willing to list your price at a realistic price. Like, because let's face it, selling a house, I've bought and sold homes. I think selling a home is way more stressful than buying one.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you have to show the home. So
And there's less control.
That too, especially in this market.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just want to list your property for some stupid dollar figure to see what happens, well, I would tell you, not only are you wasting your time and the real estate agents, but you're putting yourself in a situation that's going to be a lot more stressful than necessary.
Agreed.
And I don't get it.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Please.
So
I love these stories.
I had a listing in Round Rock, and seller, good friend of mine, market value at the time was probably 650, 660-ish, but at that price point we were 650. Dead set on 725.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like, it's not going to move.
Right.
No, let's just see what happens. Like, I don't need to unload it. Let's just see what happens. Like, okay, fine, fuck it, whatever. List it. Listing expires. Okay. We take it off the market. We're going to wait for it to reset. Now he's motivated. Okay. We've had a drop in pricing. We've had a whole bunch of crazy shit happened. We list at 600,000. I can't disclose what the amount is right now, but I will tell you that we are barely in the 600 range.
Yeah.
It sold that high, and it was under contract in 4 hours.
So what do you think, because I think I know what you're talking about. What do you think it is that, like, you think that the seller thinks that there's just going to be like some stroke of luck that someone's going to come along and like not look at comparable
Matt, what are you going to do to, like, okay, so let's just backtrack. Every time I go to a listing appointment, there's 3 different options, okay, that I present. One, we can enlist at what fair market value is. Any agent that you hire can do this.
Mm-hmm.
We can do number 2, needle in the haystack. This is what the seller we're talking about in this exact scenario. You want to get me, you want this price, but your fair market value is here.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to get here? It's going to take longer than average days on market. Are you willing to do that? Okay. And I throw that back to them. Is that something you're willing to do? Part 2, am I willing to do that?
Right. Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like, I know what you're saying, but like, what do you think is going through the consumer's head?
We're almost there.
Okay.
Option number 3, listed just below market value. Trust my marketing, and we're going to sell it for higher than option number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do not trust agent when they choose 2 and not 3. Example: online lead that comes through for a seller evaluation. We don't know each other. Like, I don't trust that guy yet. He doesn't trust me yet.
Mm-hmm.
I have to try to build rapport with him as fast as possible and see if it's someone I want to work for. Do they want me to work for them? It has to be a mutual relationship.
Yeah.
The ones that are not mutual relationships, it's like, fuck it, just list my house.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the worst fucking listings.
But I guess here's what I'm always think. Like, if I'm selling something, doesn't matter what it is, a house, a car, anything. If I offer a specific price for it,
Mm-hmm.
and someone accepts it or makes me a different offer, I don't have to accept the offer.
No.
So
You're not obligated to sell your property until you sign in a contract.
Right.
Offer gets submitted, you have no obligation.
because I've seen situations where, and this is not common, but I've seen situations where properties have been listed at a specific dollar figure and then they've actually turned around and relisted the property for a higher amount.
Yeah, it's sketchball. I don't like that.
Don't get me wrong, it's not best practices, but what I'm getting at is that in my mind, and I could be wrong here, but what I envisioned probably happened was, you know, the real estate agent was like, look, let's list the property at X amount of dollars. Let's see what happens. And then they ended up getting some offers that were, you know, a little over what the list price was. And they said, all right, let's turn around and list it a little higher, which again, I don't think is a good idea. But the point is, like, they turned down offers that were at least asking price. And you can do that.
Absolutely, you can.
And if I had a real estate professional coming in and I'm interviewing and doing all of those things and I'm saying, oh, I'm not in a hurry to sell, which, I mean, if you're sitting with an agent, you're signing a listing agreement. I'm not saying you're in a rush, but you're certainly not in a situation where if, you know, your house were to sell that you're going to like go, we actually didn't really want to sell for 6 more months, right? Like, that's not a thing.
Unless you sign docs.
Right.
And then if they, let's say, oh, we really don't want to sell, you did sign, And if they don't deposit their earnest money and option money within the first 3 days, now you can terminate.
So where I'm going with all of this is, do you think it's possible that the average consumer does not know or even thought about the fact that like they could get an offer for what the house is listed at and they can turn it down? Do you think that sellers feel like there's some sort of responsibility that if they get what they asked for, they have to accept that offer?
I would say with my clients, no. Maybe in other scenarios, we kind of go through the whole thing, and it's like, hey, if we get an offer at list price, even though we're priced 3 or 4% below list, you have no obligation to accept that. It's purely going to be a marketing strategy that we're going to do to create more traffic for your listing to sell it at the price point you're expecting it to. There's no obligation in it.
Because here's like a story I hear a lot from real estate agents. Okay, they meet with the client.
Yep.
Client says, I want to get $750 for my property. Real estate agent says there's no way that we're going to be able to sell this thing for a penny over $700,000. So we're $50,000 apart.
Yep.
Right? They list it. The property is now listed at $750,000. It sits on the market for 60 days.
Yep.
Doesn't get any offers.
Yep. Probably has 3 or 4 showings.
Right. Real estate agent comes back and says, look, I kind of told you like 750 is not going to get this done. I realistically think we need to list this at like, $699,000 just to get it under the $700,000 mark.
We can talk about that later too. I disagree there.
Well, whatever. I'm not an agent, but I'm just and the seller goes, let's just drop it like 20,000. Let's go to 730, right? And we see that, and in my mind, I'm wondering like, what is it with people, in your opinion? What's stopping them from going, okay, you know what? Let's list it at the 700 even, whatever you want to call it, and see what happens. And if it hits right away, then they kind of just go like, let's counter with a higher offer, or let's not accept the offer. But at least see what the F is going to happen.
So the only thing I can give as a defense to the seller in that standpoint is on average right now, we're selling about 4.5% below list price right now. And by setting yourself at a current pricing, because we are technically, if you look at it that way, we are a depreciating market, even though we're not.
Right, I get it.
That would basically then say, okay, I have a security blanket. That's the way to look at it. But on the flip side, now completely change the mindset. Let's say we price it to where that offer did come in at. We most likely will be selling for slightly more than that because of the amount of demand that's created. And then it is supply demand. It's basically, there's other people coming here. How bad do I want the house? Oh, I'm being competitive. Okay, we'll bend a little bit more.
Do you think maybe it's a budgeting thing? In other words, like even though a seller knows that like they're not going to get what they're going to get until someone makes an offer, they've already like budgeted everything out in their minds based on a number that they have.
Yeah, for that same client I sold for way over, or got under contract way over list last week. I've sent him like I think 12 or 13 net sheets now with different price points to $1. Like we had some a repair amendment that came back for a decrease in sales price. And yes, they are budgeting it every single second.
So maybe you can't speak to this particular client, but just in general, do you ever like kind of say, hey, I understand you're clearly trying to budget to figure out exactly what it is you're going to get off of the sale of this property, like what you're going to net when it's all said and done. Do you ever ask, like, what are your goals with that money?
That's all planned out in the listing appointment.
So what do most people say?
Okay, in this scenario, it's, hey, I got a little bit of debt, want to pay it off. I went through a divorce. All that's going to be taken care of now. My daughter lives down the street. I'm going to have a rental set up next to her. And now I'm going to live a cush, convenient life for 12 months and get my life under a reset.
And that's going to require X amount of dollars.
To pay off, we're going to way exceed it. But like previously, we weren't, when we were at $725,000. And if it was sold to something else, like, I don't know, it just was not going to happen.
Again, I'm always all about the sales side of things. So I'm looking at it like, okay, if paying off debt is the main objective, right, is what I'm hearing. What about even taking it a step further? And sometimes it's just like planning the information. It's like, well, what are you paying monthly on this debt? That's
the whole big topic. Majority of people I'm working with right now are trying to reduce their overhead.
Right. So if we'll just use round numbers and say like, look, you're planning on paying off like $50,000, $60,000 worth of credit card debt. you're paying $2,500 a month. Every single month that we sit on this property, you're
Yep.
spending $2,500 in debt. Your mortgage payment's another $4,000.
Yep.
You're hemorrhaging $6,500 every single month.
So we got a tool we use what basically shows that with the current expenses you have, with the current debt you have, here's how long it would take for us to break even. Here's where you're paying too much. And then I also bring that with me to the listing appointment to kind of explain if we say this price for too long, because I always, in my listing appointments, there's a 2-week, if you want to go at number 2 option where we're needle in the haystack, you got 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
If you go longer than 2 weeks, we can say bye-bye and part ways. It's a waste of your time.
How does that resonate with clients? I mean, are they receptive to it? Or they just kind of block it out and they're like, well, let's still just list really high and see what happens? Like,
I won't take the listing if they block it out.
okay. How many agents do you think, and I know this isn't something that's easy to, quantify, but
75%.
75% are doing this?
Yeah.
Really?
No, saying they'll just take the listing.
No. I'm saying how many of them are doing this?
2%, 3%.
I mean, to me, it just seems like a no-brainer. It's like going deeper than just the actual sale of the property. Obviously, selling your home, you're going to have a bunch of goals that you want to try to accomplish. And if paying off debt is one of them, I feel like we just gave the guy who's, as an analogy, it's $6,000 or call it $6,000 a month between his mortgage and his credit cards. I mean, he sits on the market for 6 months. I mean, that's $36,000 that he just throws away, where we could make that reduction in the property in 30 days and be done with it.
Yep.
And so
And you're not paying off on that.
when you do those presentations and give that explanation, I mean, does it seem to be an aha moment, or
Yeah, it's definitely aha, like, oh, shit.
aha, like I didn't think about it, or aha, like, yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't want to, like,
It depends. 9 out of 10 is, wow, okay.
Yeah.
The other
that's
one.
what I would think, is that
Yeah.
most people are like, wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Because when we do it on our end, we show all of those, and it's amazing to me how many times people don't think like that. Like right now, we're getting into a point in the mortgage industry where we're seeing interest rates going down. Refinancing is becoming, something we're talking about more, and we actually are putting together proposals on the cost of waiting to refinance.
Yeah.
You want to time the market and you want to get the lowest rate. I understand that, but how long are you going to continue to pay on your higher interest rate so that you can capitalize on picking up what? An extra $50, $100 a month in savings?
Yeah.
So if we're spending $250 every single month, but we're going to save an extra $100, like what's the point where we kind of go, all right, we need to do this now?
Just the easiest numbers. It's pretty simple.
I'm just surprised. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised. I'm just surprised that that's not a bigger conversation for agents.
Yeah, no, so like through our NetSheet platform, through Capital Title, there's an option that you can say, here, what's your holdover costs look like?
Yep.
You can put in how much debt they have on certain items, whether it's car, house, insurance, all that other stuff, right?
It's not even like, it's basic math.
I understand it. I know. But it makes it pretty, a little graph.
Yeah. No, I
And
understand. It makes the presentation nicer.
It makes first grade level reading super easy. And
Right.
it's easier to sell first grade level reading than it is 3 paragraphs
True.
and an
True.
Excel spreadsheet.
True. Well, I guess then when I'm hearing you guys on all of these listings and everything along those lines, things aren't moving as well as I thought they were. I thought that you guys were crushing it a little harder towards the end of the year. That isn't normal, but maybe I'm just
No. This is the
overly-
time of the year my wife is freaking the fuck out.
Oh, well, I always tell people, whatever you can get on paper before Thanksgiving
Yep.
is about the end of your year, because, you always do. I always find this one crazy couple that just needs to get their home purchased before the end of the year. There's always that guy. He wants to get it on in 2020, in this case, 2024 taxes, but for the most part.
I'll do a ton of investors over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. But for the most part, I tell people now's the time to, work your 40-hour work week and get ready for the beginning of the year. And I'm looking forward to it, though. I think 25 is going to be fun.
I do too. I hope so.
What was the other thing I wanted to touch on? Oh,
Election?
no.
Which one?
So, a lot of economic data coming out over the next couple of weeks. And then we have another Fed meeting on November 11th. And one of the things that I've been mainly reading about, I'm not hearing it as much from my clients, here and there, just I want to wait and see what happens, because not only after the election, but there's some people who have some concerns economically that they might get laid off, right? Especially here in Texas with oil and gas. You know, I know for a fact because I have a few family friends that are in that business in the Houston area that they're telling us that their companies are holding off on hiring and they're holding off on spending any money until they figure out everything with the election, because oil and gas is one of those things that does kind of, you know, if there's more regulation, it can affect their business. If it's drill, baby, drill, it can be good for the business.
We got pipeline.
Right. And so I was thinking about people who do not own a home that currently rent that have some concerns about them losing their job. And I thought about it and I'm like, man, you know, that's a tough spot to be in. What do you do? But then it kind of dawned on me because I've seen it in the past. And this is my advice. If you're out there and you are concerned that maybe you might be losing your job or that, you know, it's even in the balance, but you're considering purchasing a property, I just want you to envision this. Number one, if you do lose your job, let's face it, the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to have to find some other form of employment. So it's not like you're going to lose your job and just hang out. And you'll get on unemployment and do all of the things, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have some sort of overhead expense for housing. Mm-hmm. Unless you can go and live with your parents. And if that's the case, then don't listen to what I'm about to say. But you're going to have to pay that rent anyway. And, you know, getting evicted from an apartment or getting behind on payments on an apartment, you have a lot less rights than actually getting, you know, foreclosed on a property. And then even when you do get that new job back and everything's moving forward, depending on like what you decide to do and depending on what field you go into, it can be a little more difficult to qualify for a loan when you have a brand new job. It's not to say it can't be done. So, you know, I do get that call all the time when people are like, oh, I've only been on my job for 30 days. Like, call me, we can work it out. But I would argue that it is best practices that you go out and get your home now and, you know, run the possibility of losing your job and figuring that out with your home and having just higher rights, lower ability to be kicked out, so on and so forth. And let's face it, if job loss continues or, if, you know, economically, you're going to be glad you're in a house, right? You're going to just be in a much better position. So I'm usually pretty conservative when it comes to loans. And so to hear myself even out loud say, hey, you know, if you're concerned about losing your job, buy a home. It sounds counterintuitive, but
sorry, it's the craziest thing you've ever said, but
right.
It's not that crazy.
Well, it's not, because you're going to have to get a job. You're going to figure it out, right? I think it's a cop-out. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a cop-out. Now, if you told me that like your health was taking a turn and you weren't sure if you're going to be able to work anymore, I'd be like, yeah, maybe buying a home isn't in best practices. But, you know, if you're just holding off on buying a home because you think that renting is safer during a situation of job loss, you're dead wrong. End rant. Mic drop. What are your thoughts?
I'm right there with you.
You're just ready to sell the house.
Yeah, especially the guy one before it too.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other piece of it. I mean, if you've saved up a decent amount of money, God forbid, you know, you buy that home, you live in it, even if you do have to sell it.
I'll give you a better one.
Let's go.
You're in let's call it a 3,000 square foot house. Okay? You're worried about job loss. You still have a job. Why don't we go buy the other house and acknowledge your fear? Downsize, get you a smaller payment, liquidate the current property. Now you have some proceeds to live off of, so your sense of security is back, and we got you a lower payment on your current mortgage to feel like even more security.
Yeah, and if you own the home, if you had to, you could rent it.
Bingo.
Right? What, are you going to sublease your apartment?
You could. Airbnb arbitrage. I
think it's easier to rent a nice house than it is to try to re-rent an apartment.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's been the other objection I've been getting now. It's like I want to wait and see what happens with my job.
Completely understand it though.
Well, and it goes back to what we talked about with the listing stuff. Like when you scratch the surface of things, you know, it's like, oh, well, this person needs to net $100,000 on the property. If you do not dig deeper and say, well, why? Where is the money going? What are your fears? What are your concerns? It's the same thing with the guy who says, well, I'm going to wait until after the election. Okay, why? Well, I'm concerned that there's a possibility that my employer might be laying people off. Okay, and what are your concerns about that? Well, if I don't have a job, I'm not sure how I would make the mortgage payment. Do you rent? Yes. How are you going to pay that if you're laid off? Well, I mean, I'll figure it out. I'm like, well, wouldn't you figure it out too if you had a mortgage? Well, yeah, I guess I'd have to. And isn't it a lot easier to get a home when you have a job? Sure is.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you have way stronger rights when you own? Yeah. And you could rent the place? Yeah. And you could sell the place? Yeah. Maybe buying right now is a great idea.
It's fucking genius.
While you still can.
Yep.
I mean, because this goes back to the line that we say with refinance. And this is like my new public service announcement that I've been saying. There's a lot of talk of interest rates going down, and I'm excited about it. And I want everyone to capitalize on the lowest possible rate necessary. But if you are even considering refinancing because things are tight for you financially, I encourage you to call me because we need to go over your finances now because the hardest time to get a loan is when you need one. And the last thing that I want anyone to do is call me and say, hey, I really need help. And then we look at the situation and it's like, oh, you've already missed a mortgage payment. Oh, you're behind on your car payment. Sorry. Wish you would have called me before all of this because now we can't do anything for you. And they're like, well, I was going to call, but I was waiting for the rates to go down. It's like, well, now you get nothing. Now you get nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. What else you got?
Going back to, actually, no.
I know what I got for
Okay,
us.
go.
So, Matt and I do a lot of lead share stuff where we go after clients because Matt doesn't do mortgages and I don't do real estate. And we have been getting a lot of people who have been contacting us, mainly buyers that are, looking for information on buying homes. A lot of these buyers don't have real estate agents and we've been placing them, but we have been having a little bit of a difficult time keeping up with our lead flow. And so I've been going out, and Matt's always doing this, but now I'm hitting the streets. I've been talking to agents that are newer in the business, maybe floundering, looking for ways that they can generate new business, but don't have either the money or, just the confidence to invest in leads, right? So I've been out there trying to talk to agents, connecting them with Matt, connecting them with me, and figuring out ways that we can put buyers in front of you so that you can generate some revenue and make some money. So I'd love to talk to agents locally here in the area about that. We've been doing weekly sales trainings. Obviously, you've heard all the things that Matt was just talking about on some of the things that he does with listings. Like we have a blueprint, and I'm looking to talk to agents about that.
Bingo. And now we're at EXP too.
Can we announce that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So Lone Wolf Realty,
Not everyone's over yet as this is recording. I am officially at EXP though.
There it is. EXP, main reason for that was, just a little more flexibility, a little more...
more than that.
Well, I mean, I'm asking.
Okay. Primarily it's finance. Finances.
The money.
Correct. Make more money.
Love that money.
If you want to learn how to make more money when you're sleeping, but you also sell real estate and you get paid basically to have your license somewhere, reach out to me and I'll explain it all to you.
Yeah. Well, reach out to me if you're looking to generate more business. That's the best way to get paid.
It is, and that's 100% still going to be the best way to get paid.
We got to get some of the agents on here on the team. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of. I don't want to say his name right now. That I would love to just get him on to talk about his testimony in respect to, he was an agent for just a little over a year and a half and got on Lone Wolf Realty. Obviously, we put the leads in front of him and everything, and even once the leads were there, he was having a difficult time converting them. We got him all the scripts, all the training, all the things, and he's been crushing it. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. You're not joining like a 300-person team. You're going to get the attention that you need. And finally, some of the words that I've been saying for the last few years that haven't seemed to hit home in the real estate community until the last 12 months is y'all are selling homes while also educating, but you are selling homes. And that's what we've really been doing is gearing agents up to not only realize, but to get better at selling.
We are salespeople.
Yep. Own it. You got anything else?
Checking out.
Awesome.
Actually, no.
Yeah, go.
More. You'll see it here shortly. If you are first-time home buyer, I'm going to be running some webinars. If you want to take a peek at those and join, feel free to click the Calendly link down below. There will be an ad post up on Facebook and Google that you'll probably see running. But if you want a direct link to it, there's a Calendly link down below in the comments. Feel free to click it, and we'll get rocking and rolling.
Awesome. Well, And then I guess I always got to give a shout out to every Friday, Barbecue and Mingle. If you have a job that's in the financial arena, CPAs, insurance agents, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, financial advisors, come through to our office. This week I'm doing 2 full pork tenderloins. We usually get it kicked off around anytime after 1, and then it goes into 7, 8 p.m. But watched a lot of business get done. I've watched a lot of connections get made, so it's been really, really great. It's the best barbecue ever. So come through.
And then that's not just financially. Real estate agents,
Yeah,
also feel free to come by.
yeah. Well, correct. Love to see you there. All right,
Perfect.
man.
Thanks again.
Take it easy.